Bole Baba Kite, welcome to today's Zoom Satsang at the Hedekandi Universal Ashram, and I'm Ramloti, and grateful to have Jamuna and Kharku and Maria Elana, who are from Thailand and Arizona, and they're all convening in Arizona right now, so it's good timing to have you, so thank you. And I also mentioned that yesterday was Sri Muniraji's birthday, and we thought we might also share a story about Muniraji as well. So Kharku, can you go ahead?
Bole Baba ki jai.
Jai.
Ima Muniraj Maharaj ki jai. Yesterday, it was Muniraji's birthday, and I had such a powerful connection with him yesterday that I was overwhelmed with his presence and Babaji's presence. And I came to a place after 44 years where I felt comfortable to be me, really realizing how supported I am, how much love is infinitely always there, and how they're always listening and they're always answering. And I began to cry yesterday, and I realized I cried my eyes out. And in doing that, I realized I haven't really had a good cry since I was a little boy. It was really very, very powerful. And then I came home to write a letter to Muniraji to share with all of you. And that became the beginning of the book I've always promised I'm going to write. So I'm not going to share that letter right now because it just I couldn't stop it. So there's too much, and I couldn't contain it in a short message. But Muniraji, we're sitting here with Babaji and the mother right behind us. And Muniraji he was so close to Babaji that he sat with Babaji. I was always sitting on his shoulder. All those years that we had with Muniraji, Babaji was sitting on his shoulder. And he guided us again and again. He guided me. I can only talk about me really, but he guided me again and again to rely on faith, to just realize and believe that we're always connected. Babaji never died for Muniraji. And we're Western people, so I don't know. But Babaji never died for Muniraji, and he showed me how to keep that really alive. And it brought up memories of when I first arrived in Harakan in 1977, after I'd been there for a few days. Of course, I met Muniraji in Haldwani before I got to Harakan, but I didn't know who Muniraji was. And Muniraji came a few days later, and Babaji took he and we walked up the riverbed quite a long ways. And Babaji had Muniraji and I give Babaji his bath. So Muniraji showed me he began being my teacher. And after the bath, Babaji gave me my Janeo and told me we would always be connected. And then he said, Muniraji is your guru. And you lived with him in past lives, and he called you here to be with me. Although my memory of being called was Mahinda Maharaj, but that's what Babaji said. And then Babaji and Muniraji together blew my mantra into my ears. And Babaji said to me, you serve Muniraji. Now you're serving me, but you serve Muniraji as if he were me. And one day I will give you to Muniraji. He set the stage for 7 years later when he left his body. And all of the years that I lived with Muniraji, all of the times, he always pointed me back to what Babaji said. He always pointed me back to connect through your heart to the divine, because you had the blessings of meeting Babaji, so the voice is in your heart. When Muniraji wasn't connected to Babaji, I can't remember any moment when Muniraji didn't make sure whatever he was about to say or do was connected to his inner dialogue with Baba. And I'll just start with that. Bole Baba ki jai.
Jai. Thank you. Jumna, do you have something to share?
I think I would like to share two things. One is very brief, and then the other one is a little bit bigger. After Babaji's Mahasamadhi, I really struggled. I had met him when I had just turned 21. And when Motu called me and said, you know, are you seated? And then she told me that Babaji had left his body. I remember sort of free falling for days and days. And I remember wailing, walking around the town of Princeton in the middle of the night, just wailing and inconsolable with the pain of having to face, at this point, I was 22, the rest of my life without Babaji's physical form. And I couldn't, there was nothing in me that could reconcile this grief. And so I had the realization I could will my death, that was actually possible and that I would know how to do that. And I really didn't want to live the rest of my life with that absence, having known his physical presence and form, and to experience the loss, because for me, it felt like a loss. And well, it was a loss, the physical form. So I began to intend not an active suicide, but more a passive giving up the will to live. And I knew somehow I knew that was possible. And after a couple of days of that, I had a very, very clear darshan internally where I saw myself crossing over. And I saw Babaji on the other side. I'm smiling because, and his wrath, his absolute pure wrath at the misdirected willfulness, at the arrogance of taking my own life. And I knew that he would send me back. And I knew that I would have to face the consequences. And so that was the end of that. That was nipped in the bud. And I have always known that's not a path. But that was the only time where I really felt that. Subsequently, I lived in a low-grade chronic grief, which called me. I would go to Creston. I would go to the ashram. You remember I went often since the 80s, since 86. Often means from where I was. I was in New Jersey. I was in Texas. I wasn't right next door, but I went. And then I hadn't gone because every time I went, I wept. I wept and wept and wept because that grief would arise. I mean, the love, the longing, the grief, and it would all arise and it would all be alive again. So it was a bittersweet. It was sweetness, but also very difficult. And then in 1990, when I heard that Muniraji was coming, I felt such ambivalence. I wanted to go very, very much. And at the same time, I was really terrified because it's like, how am I going to pranam to Muniraji? He's not Babaji. How am I going to show my respect? I really, again, I was 22, 23. I mean, well, no, by 90, I was older, but I was still in my 20s. And it just, my mind was struggling with that. In the end, the desire, the longing to commune together in this love that Babaji embodied for us was greater than my mental struggles about pranam, no pranam, how, what's going to happen. And I remember really, really clearly, I arrived and I think the morning arti was finished and sitting out. And the first person that I saw was Gora Devi, and she called me over quickly. And I was really, really happy to see her. And I was so engrossed that I didn't see Muniraji was right next to her. So it was like I was so focused on Gora Devi, and we were hugging each other and everything. And then all of a sudden I hear his voice, Jamuna, soft, but very round and deep and comforting. like a long lost uncle, godfather, older brother, like a mixture of the most benevolent, loving, masculine, older protector. And it was very, I didn't even think. I turned around and I was like, Muniraji, and I pronounced with my whole heart, with my whole being. There was no hesitation whatsoever. And then I wondered at the mystery of how that all happened just so perfectly. It was like a child that got distracted over here, and then it was so easy and so natural. And I felt Muniraji like that. And for me, that was very important. I had a very difficult father whom I loved immensely, but who was very dangerous and very emotional, explosive. And so I never really felt safe. And Muniraji was the embodiment of a masculine that was loving, benign, protective. And over the years, that love grew, and the spiritual consciousness and his spirit touched me more and more. But that took time, that evolved. It was almost like the relationship was first psychologically healing, and then it became more and more and richer and richer. I will save the other story because this was supposed to be the short story. So I will only see if there's time, I'll share the second part. But I do want to say one last thing. I also enjoyed many beautiful moments of laughter and joy that was so pure and so innocent when he would delight at Kamalaya with a simple coconut. You know, he was already older and frail. So he was so human and so beyond that too, that it was just extraordinary. And it was in that first meeting with Gora Devi and Muniraji that once I said hello and I was walking, that I first met Gayatri. And I remember that moment also, just huge, big, beautiful, radiant Gayatri. It's like, oh, I've heard so much about you. We hugged, and it was, I still remember the whole experience very beautifully. So I'm really happy you're here right now, Gayatri, sending you a big hug and much love. I don't know,
Yeah, I remember that moment too.
Moji, can you hear me?
Mama,
Mojo, can you hear me? I guess not.
I'm just
A
trying
lot
to
of sound. There's a lot of sound.
Okay, let's see how that is. Oh, I think Pujari is trying to get back on. Pujari, are you here?
Yeah, I'm back on. Then my generator went off, and I got it back on, so I am also back.
Oh,
Great. Well, let me bring you back in here.
Dat heb ik toch? Oh nee.
Pujari.
Ik hoor Giri daar. Oh, nu niet meer. Goed, goed.
Okay, welcome back, Pujari.
Thank you. Yeah, it is challenging in the village, but I was able to listen the biggest part of Jamna's beautiful story. Thank you, Jamna, for sharing that. Amazing. Yeah, how we were heartbroken with Baba Samadhi, and at the same time, this peaceful, loving father was there to keep us going. And without him, a lot of stuff wouldn't have happened. No ashram in Holland, maybe not even Kamalaya. He is definitely responsible for us carrying on the job that Baba said you have to do the other half of the work. And Muniraji was very aware of that from the moment of Samadhi.
Yes.
So I feel I have the same devastating experience with Baba Samadhi, and the beauty of Muniraji continuing on a human level, guiding us and being an inspiration for us, but also for, I believe, generations to come. He is an incredible being. We have to make some movie about this. Yeah.
It's a good idea. Mahendra, I think you need to mute your phone or whatever you're on, Mahendra, please. Thank you. So, Maria Elana?
I was feeling into my experience of Muniraji, and the most vivid, direct experience was after the famous almost karmic meeting. I was at the end of the marriage with Richard, who had already been diagnosed with lung cancer, and he had become friends with Radisham. So for that ceremony where Muniraji came to ground the initiation, it was very, very calming and dramatic to see how he just held, you know, held. And all the commotion and confusion. But when we were leaving, Richard parks a car and gets out to, he realized that the bus out, or the car that had Muniraji in the back, and he wanted to be very honoring. And he got out in a typical Richard way with his camera and went on and on and on around. And Muniraji, you know, whatever made me move, I got out of the car. And Muniraji did, see, that many inches forward. It can be taken at all the layers. The grounding of his presence at that moment still carries me, because it's like the extended, but then the focus, and it's non-verbal. But to this day, I still remember the feeling, you know, and of course, the loving, divine, accepting Father. But not a word was said. I would never forget it, ever, because he took it from wherever my experiences had been. And I was grounded on Babaji, but this one was grounded here in the United States, in this, for those of us who have that kind of instability, you know, could have been a very dramatic experience. But with that kind of ending, it was like the peace that, again, of Babaji, but everywhere and anywhere. If we can, he carried that loving, multi-dimensional presence. And I experienced him at that point as the grounding that has made my journey be conscious. And last time when John and Karina were not here and I was late and whatever else, I remember that it's like chapter 1 of that Denver episode, that Colorado. And this is the chapter 2 with the Muniraji groundedness. And my one of the things that continues to myself is the East and the West making that infinity sign, in how many ways, in how many layers and dimensions that continues to happen. Until now, it's I feel this is the stage with the dreams, with the actualizing that guided everything that came up for me last time. Absolutely. If that was the last time I ever could speak, I would have said nothing to change. I know the love of Baba in my heart. I have known it from the beginning, but through Muniraji, it was grounded just by a smile. That's all, but unforgettable to this day. And that's the infinite and the eternal. And we in that middle, you know, whether we're going upwards or whether we're going downwards or to one side or to the other. But that's where Muniraji, and of course in the presence of Baba, have always met us, have always met me.
It's so beautiful.
And the only other laughing face that I see is the first day that I got to Herakan, and the first words that came out of Babaji's greeting to me was, "Why has your mama come and take you home?" To my children, it's like that divinity weaving itself into the earth in all dimensions, you know, and Muniraji in the bridging of that has been
Thank you.
eternal gratitude.
That's so beautiful, the way you put, you know, for sometimes when Baba is so, and Muniraj was, you know, he was a businessman, he had family, he had a business, he had trucks, he had grandchildren, great grandchildren, the epitome of, like you said, groundedness. I'd like,
Yes, but that's what he could, that was the bridge,
yeah, it was beautiful.
and that's what his love, and that's what he, you know, extended through just the love that he was, the love that he continues to be.
Muniraji was so unbelievably grounded. And he certainly, for me, fulfilled the role of being my father, the father I didn't have. I mean, I had a father, but not really. And Muniraji was my stability. He was my anchor. I always knew he was there. And I don't think I could have done all the things I've done in my life if I have not had the grace
That
to be with Muniraji.
Do you want to share that story?
Ramloti, I'd like to share a story. Jamna just reminded me. 1984, there was many incredible things that happened in 1984 after Babaji passed. And Pujari will remember we had to, under Pujari's tutelage, we had to build and expand Chilianola to make it ready for all the people. And we worked day and night. But we had this one, I had this one very particular experience. I was sitting with Muniraji. He was at that time staying, originally we stayed in a little hut, and we all slept together like in a row. We all slept together with Muniraji, Pujari, me, Raghu, and I had a little tiny kitchen where I could make tea for people, and there was and all the devotees. And then sometime later, Muniraji moved up into a room. So I can't remember actually when that was. He was on the second floor. And one day he was sitting on his bed, and I had brought tea, as I was always bringing tea, and being there translating or being a part of whatever was going on. And I came into the room. I was sitting there with Muniraji, and I made pranam to him. And when I came up from Pranam, Babaji was sitting there, not Muniraji. Muniraji had the form of Babaji. And I had such a shocking experience that I couldn't take it. And I ran out of the room. And I remember standing out, I thought I was going to get sick. I was standing on the wall looking down into the courtyard. I was just shaking. And it took me, I don't remember now how long, but it took me some time to kind of stabilize myself. And I came slowly back into the room. And Muniraji just looked at me and he said, I don't know why Babaji does these things. This is all Babaji. Without my having said a word, he knew what my experience was.
Wow.
And I had so many of these moments. And many of you know that I met this extraordinary astrologer who he and I stayed very, very, very close together for many, many years. And Muniraji consulted with him, Aulogji consulted with him, Raghu, all my friends. I mean, he was a really extraordinary guy. World leaders consulted with him. But every time I brought Ajitji to Herakan, he came to Holland also, to the ashram in Holland with us. But whenever he saw Muniraji, he said, Babaji is sitting on his shoulder. Babaji is sitting on his shoulder. Babaji is always whispering in his ear. He doesn't make anything without the instructions of Babaji. Again, Mahamuniraj Maharaj Jai.
I was going to share when Muniraji came on, like you said, after Babaji left his body, Muniraji and Sastraji graciously came around the world. And I think that was 85 and 86. And so it was 84 that I met Pujari, and he came here and helped us choose Crestone to host him here. And was just helping us get ready a little bit. But anyways, I was traveling with Muniraj and the party from, I didn't live in Crestone at the time. I lived up in Monroe, Washington at Don and Kay Kehoe's place. But somehow I was in the Hawaiian Honolulu airport with the traveling party. Maybe I was going on the whole tour, which I did in 86 or maybe 85, just hosting them from place to place in America. But we had a long layover, and I said, Muniraj, knowing he loved plants and everything, there's a beautiful place in the Honolulu airport, or used to be, that had like an arboretum almost, which is so beautiful. And I think other people were resting or eating. And I said, do you want to come and I'll show you this? And he said, yes. And so we went, and we were just sitting there. And I asked him in my heart, just like you, I didn't say anything, but in my heart, because I also had such a strong connection to Muniraji and felt his love and guidance, like he'd been in my life a long time. I just asked in my heart, Muniraj, who are you? And all of a sudden, his face changed, his whole body changed. He turned into this old Tibetan Lama of sort. And it was scary for me also. It was fierce. It was a fierce look. It wasn't the sweet Muni. It was like very strict and fierce. And I just looked, and then I closed my eyes. And then when I opened, he was regular again. We never spoke about it, but I just knew in my heart that he had been, like Baba had told you, Kharku, that he must have been many of our teachers, because he's actually the one who comes to me in dreams. I don't have a lot of dreams, rarely a Babaji, but more about Muniraji. And this was one dream I had, I don't know, not so long ago. All night he was teaching me all these special pujas and mantras, and it's just so elaborate. And it was so beautiful. And then as the dream was ending, I said, thank you, Muniraji. And I don't think I'm going to remember any of this. And he just put his arm around me. Said, that's okay. So who knows these things? But like you, I just feel so blessed that we could have Muniraj so much longer and could go to see him each year.
Ramloti, can I can I join you in your story a little bit? Because I never heard that story, but it really brings tears to my eyes because it's making me connect with an experience with Sastrati in Holland. I guess it was 90, you would know better, who,
In 93.
93 or 96, in one of those tours that Muniraji and Sastrati did together to Europe. And we were,
Was it when the ashram was burned down or when the ashram was re-inaugurated?
I think,
Was there?
reinaugurated.
Yeah, that was 96. 96.
That's what I would,
They
96.
came in 94 and then there was no ashram,
Yeah.
but they still came. But in 96, they came to inaugurate the new ashram. And you were there, Kharku was there. And
Yeah. And I think 93 also, because anyway, but it was in one of those, 93 or 96, but I think 96 and 94 or 96. But anyway, that's less significant, but right around in there. And Muniraji, it was the afternoon, so he had gone, I guess the temple or wherever the temple was, he was there taking the interviews. And Kharku and I were staying in the house that Raghavir had that had a very big back garden, beautiful back garden. And Sastrati was there, and we had woken up from our naps and we were having tea in the garden. And I was sitting, giving Sastrati significant space, privacy, so to speak, and sitting on the side. And all of a sudden, Sastrati said to me, come close. So I pulled my chair closer. He said, closer, and he got me very close. And Kharku, you were there as well.
I remember very well.
And he said, okay, look at me here. So I'm looking at Sastrati, goes, now give me a number from 0 to 100. I could look like that and said the first number that popped in my head. I said it. And then he started giving me a reading. And there were a few very, very poignant, significant things. I won't go through all of them, but the ones that your story, Ramloti, just sort of blew me away is he said, he gave me a Tibetan Buddhist mantra, Sastrati. He gave me a Tibetan Buddhist mantra. He told Kharku to get me a prayer wheel and that I should do this mantra with a prayer wheel. And when he said that, I had the memory at that time that as a child in rural Mexico, I used to see these men in burgundy robes. I didn't know they were monks. I didn't know what they were, but I would see them as children do. See things. I used to see a baby elephant in my garden. I kept saying, I want a baby elephant. I want a baby elephant, because I would see it between these two trees, walking around in the garden. But I used to see these, now I know they were Tibetan Buddhist monks. So I said, Sastrati, I'm just remembering as a child, I had this image. And when I saw the movie Lost Horizon, when I was older, I was like, that's what I was seeing. That's what I was seeing. And it was very resonant. And then Sastrati said to me, yes. He said, you have been with Babaji many lifetimes in Tibet, but you don't remember. And this will help you remember. Mm-hmm. And your story, just sort of your experience, not your story, what you shared with us, but the experience you had, it just all of a sudden pulled a lot of threads together, including that as soon as we married, we ended up in Kathmandu, and a number of connections happened to very beautiful and very senior, very traditional Tibetan Buddhist Rinpoches. I wasn't seeking. I felt I had Babaji and I didn't want to pursue anything, but I literally would bump in and have these experiences over and over living in Kathmandu. So it's beautiful. Thank you. I mean, it just activated and put more pieces together. And yeah. Thank you.
Pujari, did you want to share anything about Muniraji? We're a bit focused.
Oh yes, I'm quite touched about the stories. Let me start with the part that after Baba Samadhi, how the turmoil happened in Hirakan, and I was staying at Gufaside, And then the Kufa side was always peaceful. That was like the other side of Maya. There it was always the heart, and these temples were Baba's toes, and this Mount Kailas and taking the bath. There was no problem. As with Gorari, I stayed in one room. But the other side went through a dramatic power struggle, and luckily Muniraji was there, but he didn't come much. So I quite often went to Haldwani to share my heart of what I saw and what I experienced. Because at that time I thought I would stay at least 5 years in Gufferside and wait for Barbara to come back. But then I understood that Muniraji, he changed that all around. Just coming to Haldwani, it was so beautiful to be in his presence and his guidance to calm me down. That was so intensive that I started to live with him, and he inspired me. So he already said, no, your life will change. You cannot stay on Gufa's side. You will go to the West, and your karmas are good. You will start business and you will make an ashram for Babaji. But first you go America. I went to, he could see these things. And amazingly, there also, he allowed me to stay with him for some months. Kharku also stayed in the similar time, and Raghu came many times. But in that period, in 84, probably it was just 3 months after Baba Samadhi, I started to stay and live with Muniraji in the house. That was an exquisite time. His peace of his being, how Maria Elana described it. He is so centered, this man. Just walking through Haldwani was like a meditation. Just he is so quietly moving through this shopping streets and saying hello here, buying some tomatoes there, and sitting on his place. And he would send me to get tea for the people. These moments, how he moved through life was such with an empty mind, you can say, with such an empty, pure mind. And every morning, 4 o'clock, he would be awake, and we would wake up before that. Kharku would serve him tea. We would sit 3 hours in his puja minimum till 8 o'clock. Then he would have his simple breakfast and walk through Haldwani to his shop. And that he did every day, as long as I've known him. His discipline was beyond, and everybody who asked advice, Kharku knows, he can speak about it. He said, build up some discipline. But Muniraji had 4 hours of discipline in the morning of prayer, and including his bath. His bath took already 15, 20 minutes. And then Kharku would make him his tea. We would sit in this little temple. And the beauty of that experience, only now I can share it. You know, at that time I was like Gayatri, we were puppies. We were puppies around, even around Muniraji. We didn't see his greatness. At moments, yes, he really transformed himself, his form, into this Tibetan stern being, which, like, I don't know, grounded in the universe. It's incredible. But that is my experience. And also then we started to travel to Chirianola. We lived, like Kharku said, in a cow shed. Muniraji had nothing. He never wanted anything, not from me also. He didn't want anything. Everything goes automatic and natural. And it was our devotion, Kharku in front, Pujari there, Raghuveer there. We were his we became his great devotees. We wanted to give our life to him because we didn't know what else to do. And he really knew that Babaji's work will continue through all of us.
Mhm.
And so it happened. But his peace, remembering he had no car. We went with the bus from Haldwani to Raniket, and from there we walked for 1 hour through the forest, quietly passing by his brother Prem sometime and going to the ashram without saying a word.
Without saying a word.
Yeah, no word, but the inner peace that got transmitted, that's still what we long for. That's still the most beautiful part. In a walk of 1 hour without a word. Kharku knows is anyway, that's what I want to share. I don't want to, but
Thank you.
he is amazing. That's why I said we have to make a movie about him. We are working on that. We're getting a lot of material through Kalawati. from Italy. She is bringing out, she has hundreds of movies, and we are working on it together with Kharku also and Jamna. We are going to work on that, of all the tours. Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Pujari, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I just want to say, now that we're in America doing this house thing and everything, I'm finding some of my old boxes of things that I put away after Babaji's passed and then after Muniraji passed. And I also found maybe many cassette tapes and things. I'll talk to you later. But on that note, thank you, Pujari.
Yeah, thank you
On
all.
that, living with Muniraji was the most extraordinary teaching. And Babaji gave us Muniraji and Sastraji. He left us with Muniraji and Sastraji. And Muniraji and Sastraji had discipline, had discipline, had discipline. They were very relaxed about it, but they had it. It never failed. Not on plane rides, not going around the world. There was never a moment when both of them didn't do the discipline. And that's what Babaji taught us again and again and again and again, to do the puja, do the prayers, force yourself, train yourself to just keep at it, because it transforms you. It transforms you over time. It's unbelievable. And I'm going to ask Jamuna to share a story about habits, but I want to tell you that at the end, when just before, I stayed most of the last 8 months with Muniraji. I still had to run Kamalaya, and I would fly back and forth sometimes, but I would come to Kamalaya, sign some papers and go back to India. And when Muniraji could no longer see, and mostly he couldn't see for the last year or two, he was blind, but nobody even noticed, because he knew who you were when you came in the room and he called you by your name. So you just assumed he saw. But he had severe macular degeneration, and he sometimes could see through a corner of a lens, and he'd have to put his head somewhere where he could have a point of view. But for the most part, he was blind. In those last months in his house, he was in and out of the hospital. We'd go back to his house for a few days, then he'd go back to the hospital, and we'd go back to his house for a few days, and go back to the hospital. Muniraji would sit at his little temple. Mahadevi would clean it and make it ready, or whoever the pujari was at the moment. There was always someone there who was preparing. Sometimes it was me, but Muniraji would take Babaji's little miniature padukas, these little sandalwood padukas, just like 5 centimeter long, Babaji's feet. And he couldn't see anymore, so we'd do all the temple for him. Then he would come and he'd sit, and he'd take out all his books. And he knew them all by memory, but he'd hold the books and flip the pages. But before the books, he would clean the temple, and he would take Babaji's padukas and put them in his hand and reach around for the lota and pour water on Babaji's padukas and kind of wash them like that. And then drink the water. And then I put perfume on his hand, and he put perfume on them. And then he would talk to Babaji's padukas. And then put them back. And every day I would sit there, and every day it would make me cry. Every day, every day. All the way to the end. All the way. Never give up. Make the extra effort, because it changes your life. Oh, everything he showed us. And every time you were in his presence, you felt peace. Come off of a heavy train ride, a lousy taxi ride, you walk into his presence. And that was the experience I had yesterday, when I cried and cried and cried and cried. That I just felt so much gratitude that his presence is there, and he gives us peace. And he really, 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 really showed us that every individual, each and every one of us, gets to worship Babaji in our own way. There's so many ways to worship Babaji. It's Many saw the other day. She said, I sit with people all day long. We talk and we see the problems that different people have. But in those moments when we're connected, when we're singing Arti, when we come together in his name, or when we're doing some rituals, when we're connected, we're all really one. We're really, really, really one. So when you're with people and all the wobbles that come in relationships and friendships, old friendships, new friendships, always just remember that inside, behind, underneath, God is there. Just hold on. Every time, with every person, God is there. And thank you, Maria Elena. That was so beautiful. That touched me so much. And just another beautiful reminder that we're always embraced. If we're not embraced, it's because we've created a barrier, because we are always embraced.
That's the main thing that called me to Babaji. Say that I'm you. I am you. Look at my, and what had become a wounding from not having the direct experience of stability at home with the male, etc., became the stability at the deeper place and the removal of the obstacle at any difficult times. Because the connection that Baba and then Muniraji and then you, John, to many degrees, grounded with Pujari, with Raghu. You were not here, but that's when I shared. It felt like in my dream, it says, Babaji has come to take me home. And it developed what could have been a difficult, but became a grounding, blessing, multi. It was from the dream dimensions, but actualized here and actualized in the heart circle where we served. And it all came like this. And because to me, that's the route that Babaji, Muniraji, the male aspect for the female that I represent with 3 daughters. And it couldn't have been more embracing, and to this day continues. Nothing outside of that. And it's like the flow. That's why coming, the deeper I have surrendered, the easier the eddies in life that have life for me, and that I gravitate. But when I go there, it has all been divinely guided by Baba. And with Baba Muniraji, who has held everyone of you, beautiful Danas, stewards, grounding pillars, and for me, it's like the depositing of a trust in this reality, always with a heart, always with the experienced when I was in India. And that has never, at some layer, that's how I begin and end the day. And that's what has seen me through all the service. But that's the infinity sign.
Mhm.
I love it that you make the infinity sign with hearts, Maria Elena.
Well, there is that,
Yes,
you know,
yes.
because that, you know, you keep going to the middle and we keep courting and hoping and roping what we think have been our choices, and then find out that they had been again divinely guided, and another layer of awakening and trusting and deepening.
Mhm.
And like that, just continuing to let it go, to show up, not to let go before you show up. Otherwise, what a waste. But no, to show up and to thy own self be true with the support of the clarity, of the love and brightness that Baba's and Muniraji's presence has brought to each of us. You know.
Thank you. Jumna, did you have another story?
Yes, I know exactly the story. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. I'm gonna ground and say that the teachings embodied in Muniraji of discipline and that constancy, that daily practice, discipline in the best sense, not discipline in disciplinarian, but discipline in having that beautiful, beautiful 4-hour practice, despite also having family, also having businesses, etc., was an incredible example. And I fall very short of it. So it's kind of perfect that when he was in Kamalaya, one of the times he was there, after the morning RT in his room, and after everybody went, I sat alone with him, and Kharku was there, and he said, if you want to ask him anything, this is the time. And really through the years, I didn't have burning questions arise, and I didn't want to ask him questions that were more on the surface. I wanted really, if I was going to take his time with a question, I wanted it to be a burning question. That morning I had a burning question. And so I asked him, I said, Muniraji, how do you change your character? And I said, since I was a little girl, I was aware, even as a little girl, that I had impatience. And that is part of my nature, even now. It's like in my nature. And I know that my impatience sometimes hurts people. And I don't want to be hurting people, but I really do suffer from impatience. So how do I change my nature in this regard? And it was really burning, and it had come up the night before between us. And it was very alive for me. And he sat in silence, and he looked out the window at the trees and the birds and the branches. And I waited and I waited and I waited. I thought, oh my God, it's an awful question. It's a horrid question. He's never going to answer. And I just was so uncomfortable because, you know, all those years I didn't ask a question, and now this one really mattered and he wasn't answering. So I was about to start making small talk, you know, about birds and the bees, or no, about the leaves and who knows what. And right in that moment, he started. And I have to go back to the resonance and vibration of his voice. To me, his voice, like when you mentioned the experience you had of him being an old and maybe fierce, his voice had that kind of resonance to me. It had a strength and a earth, and it was strong, but it was soft and so And he said, you cannot change your nature. He began with that. And I didn't have a pen and paper, so I was like as attentive and as open as I could possibly be. And he said, you can only change your habits. But your daily habits and your daily practice will profoundly change your life and who you become. And then he proceeded to give me other many jewels. He spoke for about 45 minutes without stopping. At some point, Kharku came back into the room and I said, I need a because it was like, I didn't have a phone to record or anything. And I did write some of it up in an article for Rob and Gabby. So anyone who's interested, but he really emphasized that beginning point. You cannot change your nature, but you can change your habits. And that those daily habits of our discipline, our practice, whatever our habits are, will change us, polish us, grow us, develop us, and ultimately our life. He spoke, I mean, there are many things, but I think I'll just stay with that one piece. And I have to, in full disclosure, it was the perfect answer because that is what I struggle with. I'm a very creative person. Daily routine does not come naturally or easily. I love it when I have it and I seek it, and it very quickly becomes disruptive. It does not take much, and then it's like someone on a balance beam that isn't a gymnast. It doesn't take much, and then I'm off the beam. And then it's not as easy to get back on the beam. And when I'm on the beam, when I'm in that rhythm, I often ask myself, but why do you ever let yourself get knocked off when you love this? When this, it's like static actually. And yet I struggle with it. So for me, it's one of those jewels that I look at often, and it helps me with my struggle, but I cannot say the struggle's over. It's like one day at a time, in full disclosure and honesty. So that was I think that was the one you were referring to. That.
May I add something, Jamna?
Yes, please.
That adds to this topic, the beauty of Muniraji. Next to his discipline, he had this incredible faith in life, in Babaji. It like he is doing everything, through you, through Kharku, through me, through everybody, through a bird, through a tree. That's why he looked at the tree and the birds, because the tree is not doing anything. And Muniraji himself, he didn't have the feeling that he was doing anything. He was a perfect doer while he was not doing.
Absolutely.
And that he mentioned to me, and that we cannot do anything. Puja, you can't do anything. You can just live your life in devotion and surrender, but it's not that you personally can do anything. If your karmas are correct, and he could see karmas, then it would happen. And that's, I think also Kharku has probably something beautiful to share about Muniraji saying that he is nothing. Babaji is doing everything. And with all of us, only we get in the way. That is what you say, I struggle, I also struggle, because I still want to get in the way. And that is, that's the miracle of faith, to let Babaji do it and really get out of the way. And that's not next hour, that's every minute, every second. It's already happening. God is doing everything. So please surrender.
Well, and it brings up the point, at least for me, is that exact that delicate edge between doing and not doing, between having the discipline and the practice, and that in it becoming regular, one also gets out of the way. And so the paradox that it's like, I mean, it's a terrible comparison, but it's the one that comes to my mind, like the training ballet, right? You train and train and train and train and train until you don't have to think about it. You don't have to do it through willpower or discipline. You do it and you're not doing it while you do it. And we know that with this perfect balance of the divine through us. And yet we've still worked the instrument to empty out, to get out of the way, and yet to do while not doing. So it's that perfect paradox. I'm still in kindergarten. I still struggle with the practice, that's regular enough. Not that I feel my practice should be perfect, not at all. Just regular, just regular, no matter how simple. And but beautiful, that interplay between the doing and the not doing, the faith and surrender and being the empty vessel. And at the same time, I mean, Pooh, because you do it, that part of the doing, maybe that's not the piece you struggle with. For me, the getting out of the way is easier than the regularity, for example. Beautiful. I love that. Thank you. I love that.
Thank you. No, no, beautiful.
May I?
Yeah, go ahead, Kharku.
On this same vein, how Muniraji taught us, he always said to us, well, I'll give the example. Jamna also loves to give this example. When we were doing Kamalaya, when we were starting Kamalaya, I'll go back just a little bit. In August of 2001, Muniraji telephoned me. It was the first time ever he telephoned me. I always telephoned him, but it's the first time ever he called me out of the blue. He called me in Thailand and said, please visit me in Delhi on September the 11th. This was August. And I said, oh, okay, Muniraji, I have to go to New York soon, so I'll adjust my tickets and I'll go to New York through New Delhi, and I'll see you on September 11th. So I left Bangkok to fly to Delhi, and while I was in the air, the attack on America took place. And when I landed, Jamna, I know, she heard about it, her friends told her about it, and she was nervous because I was in the air. And I remember that on the plane, all the stewardesses were acting really strange, and they were alerted, the pilots were alerted, and there was special security measures. When we landed in New Delhi, my driver, who met me at the airport, always the same driver, he said, Shar, they have blown up America, and it is all fallen down. I'll never forget that line that he said to me. And we drove off immediately to the house where Muniraji was staying, Dr. Lal's house. And Muniraji and I sat up the whole night. We didn't sleep that night. We sat up the whole night watching this news thing go over and over and watching it unfold. And I said to Muniraji, oh, okay, Muniraji, then I dropped this project in Thailand. I'll come back to India. Now it's time to be back in India. And he said, no, now you have to build it more than ever. You leave immediately and you get the money and you build this thing. Build Kamalaya. I'm not even sure if we had the name Kamalaya yet, but we're going to build it. And he sent me off, and I flew the next day to London. And I sat in London for, I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 days, and I was on one of the first flights from the UK to New York. And I landed in New Jersey. It was the first airport that opened. And I just wanted to precurse that. I could go into a whole long story about that also, but I won't. Now I'll just jump ahead. While we were building Kamalaya, we had every imaginable obstacle. We had every imaginable difficulty. It was so much bigger than, I don't know what I was thinking, but Babaji was thinking, and Muniraji was thinking to set me off on such a big project. And at one point, we came to an obstacle where our investor tried to take the company away from us. And we were in a real quandary, and they held back the money, and everything came to a stop, and we were technically bankrupted. And I was looking everywhere for what to do. And Mark and I at that time, and Karina, we sat down and we saw how much money we had left, how many days we could hold out, and we had to let go of all of the staff. And it was just the three of us and one accountant. And we had to let go of everybody, and we felt we could probably, we had a month to figure out a solution. Otherwise, we had lost everything. And they were really attacking me. And this man was a billionaire. And I called a friend of mine who was a billionaire and said, this is happening to me. And he said, just let go, just run away. Don't fight with the billionaire, just run away. And all the business advice I got from the legal team that we had was run away, let it go.
You win some, you lose some, cut your loss, you're done.
And then I called Muniraji. And Muniraji said, did you do something wrong? And I said, no, Muniraji, in this case, this is not a mistake, this is an attack. And he said, then you just do your work. You get up and you do your work every day. Just keep going and let God decide what happens. And we just kept going. We huddled all of our money, and I kept having meetings with these people, and it was just got worse and worse, and we were in shouting matches. And then a friend of mine passing through from Kathmandu, I was telling him what happened, and he said, oh, I know somebody. And he introduced me to somebody. I called that person. It was another billionaire. And he said, heard my story, and he said, oh, maybe, who's your lawyer? And he said, your lawyer's no good, and meet my lawyer. And he introduced me to a lawyer who's still my lawyer. And he said, you don't have to worry, your problem is solved. I will solve this problem for you. And then we solved the problem. And it was only because every advice from professionals was run away. And Muniraji said, you just do your work. Every day you get up. And I'm telling you that because it's really powerful. It's a really powerful thing to just keep getting up and moving forward. Pujari knows this. He built 2 ashrams. He built it and tore down and built it again. And now he's lived in Russia through all this time and struggle. And he just gets up every morning and he goes at it and he gets it done. And Kamalaya has been this, and I don't want to cry on my shoulder, but Kamalaya has been this now for 20 years. I mean, we've had so many political crises and economic crises. It's just never, but we get up every day and we just go on. We sing Arti and go to work.
And that's the faith, Poo, that you said. It's the faith. When Muniraji said that to Kharku, despite the business advice that said from the mind, from the analysis, from the worldly level, close it down, pack up, and it's over. But Muniraji said, you do your work. You wake up and you keep taking a step, even if you don't know if the ground will be there to meet you. And that's the faith that it's not in your hands. Let the divine decide, let Baba decide, but you do your part. And you do your part 100%. Even with
I remember Jamla too. He also advised Kharku to give him a sadhana to wake up in the middle of the night, 12 o'clock, wake up, take your bath and do, I don't know what mantras, but Muniraji gave him a special sadhana to overcome huge obstacle, practice more faith, just put more energy into Babaji, more energy into faith, more discipline into I'm doing here your service. If you take it away, but I will try my best to continue and I have faith in you. Muniraji was inspiring us to the limit of waking us up in the middle of the night. I don't know what Kharku had to do, but he had to do stuff to go through these difficult phases. That I remember. Yeah. And I remember you struggling many moments. What are we doing here in this? How difficult it was. And I remember me talking to you, support Kharku. This is the moment you need to support him. I remember me talking to you. We all were in despair. This Kamalaya birth was so difficult. So it's a miracle that it came about.
It is a miracle.
That's why without Muniraji, it wouldn't have been there.
No, and I am very open about that. I mean, I absolutely could not hold that steadfastness. That's why I say that is no question my struggle. And it was like the experience of being attacked and feeling like you're in a war. This was way back. people that are so powerful that you feel like you're like a little ant that you're going to be squashed, because that on the worldly level, that's the kind of power. So you're feeling truly living a sense of being annihilated or about to be annihilated. I mean, I'm not exaggerating when I say that. And I, you know, I didn't have that kind of strength. I didn't have that training, like to hold steady. And I was really, what in the morning, I was like, no, we hold steady. We can do this. I'm a warrior, because I have a warrior in me too. We can face this. And then by the afternoon, I was like, I cannot take this. We got to stop. Let's just turn the keys over. Forget it. Let's go. And then by night again, I was like fierce and ready. I mean, I could not hold steady. And that made it doubly difficult for Kharku. Muniraji's example and words of that steadfastness, of that faith, of you just keep taking one step and do the right action and do that into the void, that surrender with the unknown. Yes, Kamala exists because of that. Not to mention all the beautiful devotees like yourself and like Gayatri and so many that help in concrete worldly ways, financially and otherwise, and support and moral support and coming. It's Babaji's miracle. And Muniraji, when he came the first time, he walked around. He had tears in his eyes, and he said, "It's a miracle. This is Babaji's miracle." He knew, really, really knew. And it continues to be right now. It's through faith that Kamalaya has remained open. It's grace, despite everything, right?
When Muniraji saw the cave, he got on his hands and knees and crawled into the cave. There was a bunch of Thai Buddhist monks doing a ceremony there, and they all stood up for Muniraji. They don't stand up for anybody. Stood up for Muniraji and offered him so much respect. And he was just dressed in normal clothes. It was just his first morning. He just woke up and came to see what it was. And he came out of the cave and with tears in his eyes, he said, "Kharku, you've lived here in a past life. Otherwise, nobody could have this place."
Like you said, that's exactly it. That's the
Ramloti, to keep Bhakta going. I have so much respect for people who get things done now that I know how hard it is to get things done.
Well, a lot of your story reminds me of the starting off here too. And
I remember.
But even now, people call and they're so distraught over the division, the non-vaxxers, the vaxxers, the Republicans, people are like, how can people just hate each other so much? And what I say is that, when I'm, as I'm made aware more and more, to me, the only thing is practice, and karma yoga is not, that's the only thing. More practice, more fire ceremonies, more chanting, more whatever, more live stream, whatever we can do. That's how I feel, because if we look around even now, it can be as hopeless as you felt right then. And
absolutely,
who knows? But the practice is what I can do, and it also, thankfully, keeps me centered and realizing that this is a small moment in a much bigger picture that we're more aware of through all our, the studies of this different stories in the history of India, Ramayana and things like that. Yeah.
Can I ask for, Ramloti, in the creation of the temple there? I remember because I went before there was a temple, when the Arti was in that house, that first house. And I think that was 83, the first time I visited. And, anyway, the long, beautiful, but also very challenging history, and also Pujari with the burning down and rebuilding the temple, after everything. But for those of us, of anyone who does struggle with faith, because we live in a time and in cultures, unless we're living in India, and even then, where the physical world is so predominant, whether it's in medicine, whether it's in business, whether in whatever, the good realm are so predominant. Well, what is your little jewel that helps you when you struggle with faith? I would love to hear that, and I think many others too. And Maria Elena also would love to hear. What's that one little jewel? Kharku, I want to ask that to you. I hope you don't mind that I'm asking this, but I think that that can really, I mean, this is a really challenging time for many of us. You know, I mean, Kamalaya too, we're on faith right now. The country is more locked down than ever, while the rest of the world is opening up. You know, it's like, really? Oh my God, it feels like we're in a compression chamber, you know? So yes, conceptually, but what is that little thing that you draw on when you most need it? I'd love to hear.
For me, it's mantra. It really is. And feeling Babaji's arms just around me, and Mother's. I'm so grateful that Mother's here. Mother is the apple of my eye. When I go in there, I just look at her every day. It's like, you're more beautiful today than yesterday. How can this be possible?
Isn't it
And
amazing?
I just look and look, yeah. And but the repetition of mantras are so helpful for me. And Om Aim Ring Kling Jamuna Vichaya, you know, I learned through Swami Saraswati, Sachin, whatever his name is, you know, Sachinand, with Sri Ma. I read his translations of the Chandipad. I think Raghu suggested that. I just love his translations and his explanation of what these things mean. And this idea that Durga, you know, I love Durga, comes and she's the warrior to annihilate my thoughts, because it's my thoughts and this crazy head of mine that puts the barrier from me feeling the miracle that is here too. Just like Kamalaya, I look around, I have no idea how this got here or how it keeps going. And it just, you know, and it's so it's, yeah, it's like, oh my unclean, help me, Mother, help me, Baba, help me, Baba. And yeah, that's and when I get the Om Namah Shivaya going through my head, you know, pretty constantly and through the night, then I know that, and I can feel in my whole body that it's peace and at one with with all, when I understand that on a deeper level. So Pujari.
Yeah, it is. I have, that's one part of my toolbox is my meditation room and a little fire ritual what I do every day. And this room is magic, and I play some part of arti or a bhajan. That's a great help to come to peace. But I want to share more than that. Is just like I shared with Jamna just before we started this satsang, sitting outside here on my balcony, looking at the river and the mountain, but it's not a mountain, but the forest in front and the birds flying over. It takes me a few minutes and I become completely empty. My mind today, it doesn't happen often, but today it completely stopped and I was quiet for 10 minutes without the mind. And then Anjani came out and she looked at me and we both get tears in our eyes. Just we feel what a divine magic is displaced or is experienced at that moment. Just the magic of, if our mind is quiet, only God is there. There is, this is my jewel. That then I feel so close to Baba because I'm not really there. I'm just not, and that's all. The trick is in the mind. If the mind starts to move, it doesn't matter if it's about a vaccine or a burnt ashram or Kamalaya. If the mind moves, there is turmoil. And the jewel is that we can always go back to that place where there is no turmoil. And the dance is, we have to go back and forward because we live in this duality, like Jamna said, this material plane. It's there. No, we cannot deny that there's a body and a vaccine. And at the same time, if we go to that peace beyond mind with the help of the toolbox, the mantra or the fire, and most when I'm just sitting and the mind stops. That's my beloved sadhana at the moment. Just I walk or I sit, and I don't know, you can't do it. But if it happens that it becomes quiet, I'm in a divine realm. and I just don't really want to come out, except for satsang. But I think that's progressively my sadhana, if I can say it that way. If where is the jewel? The jewel is there when the mind stops. Then I feel that the damage is done. Yeah.
I cannot add to that, what you're all sharing. I cannot add to that. Mantra, singing. Babaji told me to sing. If I wanted to know God, I have to sing, and I try to sing every day.
Mhm.
I connect. When I travel, I don't do all my rituals that I do when I'm sitting still at home or when I'm at Kamalaya, but I connect every day. Since the day I met Babaji, I've learned how to connect. He started me off, he said in the very beginning, when I first met him, he said, after your bath, light an incense and do follow. He started like that. He said, but everything I tell you, whatever you start, you do it every day. When you add something to it, then you do it every day. And Muniraji later said, and when you miss a few days, then you have to catch up later. But I learned through this a few breathing exercises, just a little bit. But just when Muniraji, again, today's a lot about Muniraji, how Muniraji connected us to Babaji and to the Divine Mother. I say Babaji, it means Babaji and the Divine Mother. It's just the when we were installing the temple at Kamalaya, we had the murti made with a hat. And Muniraji, when we were doing all the rites and rituals, and Vinod was there from India, and we were bringing water from the ocean, and we were doing everything. And then Muniraji said, but where's the hat? I said, no, he's wearing a hat. He said, no, you got to have a hat. I said, no, but he's wearing a hat. Imagine we're in Thailand. It's all simple here. It's like they see Buddha in this very simple way, and they don't have all this colorful Indian stuff. So we could just said, no, you have to have a hat. Hat. He said, a murti is like a baby. You wake it up in the morning, you give him a bath, you decorate him, you put on perfume, you put in nice clothes, you malas and nice clothes and a hat, and then you put a chandan and kumkum, and you add flowers, and then you sing. All that time, you're talking to God in your heart. And that's how you develop this dialogue with the highest part of yourself. And that goes through the day, you feed him, you put him to sleep at night, bed. And it dawned on me, and that took all the pujas and all the things that I learned, took it to that next level of having a constant dialogue. And I connect like with nature, that I connect through a dialogue. And once in the Duni, Babaji said to me, when you do prayers, all the mantras and everything, also always remember to talk to God in your own language. Babaji said that to me.
Almost remember what?
To speak to God also in your own language.
Oh, yeah.
So that you understand what you're saying, not just that you're reciting formulas. And I do that several times a day, but I consciously really do that every day. I reconnect, and me too. And I know Jamuna also, when we go in nature, as much as possible. Kamalaya is a garden of nature. You can sit anywhere, everywhere, here in the desert, wherever. Just flash of light, a cloud going by, anything can connect us to that. I like to call it Pujari, I call it the wordless place.
Mm-hmm.
Deep silence. When we go to that place where the dialogue just stops. Like going into a big empty room. Yes.
And for me, I call it that place where the sense of awe and wonder, it hits me, right? And so nature, I really resonate, as we were talking earlier. Japa, no question. I mean, I already had the experience of japa with Babaji and through the years, but this year, 20, so much more profoundly. It took my breath away, actually. So I really resonate, Ramloti, with that. like actually making a commitment for X amount of days and then doing it. And we started doing that like actually together as a thing, and it was in a way that was exponentially more powerful in connecting than before. And another thing that for me, for some reason, I have, you know, Sastriji said, I have a really, really big heart, and I have an equally well-developed mind. So I have the mind and the heart, and they dance, and they're not, and he said, and they're not always in harmony. And that's exactly true. I was 21, you know, and he was reading me, and I said, well, Sastriji, which one should I listen to? And he said, you listen to Babaji. So for me, that connection is really important because my heart is really strong and leads me this, and my mind is very developed and it pulls out. So one of the ways that I am able to connect to that sense of awe and wonder, where I know that Babaji and the Divine Mother and really the grace of the divine is enveloping me and holding me, is when I also remember very clear experiences where there was nothing I could do, and yet the divine swept in and carried me. Whether there's specific stories experienced in Kamalaya, or one time I had a story I won't go into right now, but of losing my wallet on the I-10 freeway in Los Angeles and it finding its way right to my desk in my office miraculously, to then being in a very difficult situation, remembering that story, remembering if my wallet can find me on the I-10 freeway, what do I have to worry about? And then like everything opens up. So those memories, remembering, savoring, and then it's like everything opens and connects again, because I forget. Sometimes I forget. I become really small humanoid and everything is compressed. And rather than the energy being, you know, like this, I've made myself and my life like this, and that disconnection is there. So all of those things.
Let's give our listeners also a few times to ask some questions, because so much beauty has been shared here that somebody else may want a specific. Biggie, did you want to share?
You have to unmute yourself to ask a question.
Biggie, we're not hearing you, sweetheart. You are unmuted, but we're not hearing you. Maybe your microphone's not happening today. Yeah. No question today.
Oh,
She can write it. She can type it in the chat.
Sometimes it can be challenging.
I can elaborate a little bit about mantra. That man means the mind, no? And tries to clean or purify the mind. So the mantra is a beautiful tool to clean and purify the mind. And at the same time, we have the senses. And all this puja and our puja adventure is to connect with the divine, that with our eyes we see murtis, we see beautiful pictures of divine beings. Through our ears we hear sounds of a bell, of a conch. This whole puja ritual is a way that our senses get so involved in the dimension of divinity that we see God, we taste prasad, we smell incense. All our senses are captured by what our heart perceives as divinity. So we slowly get taken over by doing puja and ritual and incense and singing and mantra. The mind and the senses get intoxicated by the divine. That's what I wanted to share after all this beautiful speaking about mantra and puja and our what's Baba left for us. This book is really helpful, and understanding goes deeper and deeper and deeper through the years. That's the beauty. And I think Maria Elana, she has used the toolbox so much that she has established this heart connection between that. Then it's done. No, that's beautiful.
I also love what you said, Kharku, when Baba said, speak in your own language too, because I went to Sastraji and I said, I never learned the Saptasati and Sanskrit. Can I just say it in English? And he said, oh yes, mother understands everything. And so I say it every day in English. And that's what goes in my heart. Like I walk outside and I see the moon and I say, thou art the moonlight, mother, thou alone shineth in the pure light of the blazing sun. So that's a really powerful thing for me. Okay, so here we go. Biggie, did you
Yes,
chat
she
something?
wrote in her comments in the chat, Ramluti, would you can read it out, but it's not really a question. She was just confirming about faith and that, well, I'll read it. I resonate so much with everything you have all shared, especially you, Jamna. This is all about faith. I feel the more I achieve to let go, I receive synchronicities to confirm I was always on the right path. And then she emphasizes her micro. That's so true. The beautiful synchronicities to reflect the shift. Beautiful.
Thank you, Biggie. Good to
The
see you
more we
today.
connect, the more we can receive.
Anybody else have anything they want to share or?
Yes, I would like to share something.
Yes.
I'm so happy with what you told in the beginning of this Satsang Kharku about that Babaji is on Muniraji's shoulder. And because with the first time I met Muniraji, my husband already met him before, and he was so extremely fond of Muniraji that all the time at home in Holland, he was talking about him, and he every time he planned to go back to Muniraji to visit him. So in 2007, we traveled together, and my husband was so excited because he was going to meet Muniraji again, looking forward to it. But when I saw him sitting there, it was so confusing because I saw Babaji next to him, and I made pranam, but it was on the left of his feet, and I so much wanted to do it the right way, you know. But I just started with knowing Babaji a little bit, and so I never spoke a word with Muniraji in voice, because all the time I was so confused. And because I saw Babaji all the time. And we sat it was in Haldwani, and we sat outside on the little place, and there was also an Italian devotee, and he started talking a lot, and then my husband was all the time really enjoying the company of Muniraji, and I was only so closed and confused because all the time I couldn't see Muniraji. And so we never spoke in words, but he showed me so much. And that only I realized later. So now that you talk about him, it becomes so much more clear to me. And it makes more sense what happened between him and me. And I remember in my confusion and everything happening around, and this Italian devotee asking a lot of business advice for Muniraji, but he wasn't listening to Muniraji at all. So then Muniraji picked up the newspaper and opened it, and on the front page, or maybe he looked at it, yeah, he opened it, and then I saw the picture of Bhutto, the Prime Minister of Pakistan. That day she was murdered. So he opened this, and I saw, and then he said, yeah, they killed her. But he said, you know, I cannot say the way he said it, but he was so not attached. He said it in such a way that it touched me so deep, like he is attached but not attached. So in that way, we had a kind of total silent communication. And but now I start understanding, because you talk about him, the way what you talk about him, and also I think it was the next day or maybe the day after, my husband was all the time looking for Muniraji. We went to his house in Haldwani, and then we couldn't find him, and so we went to the market and then to his shop, and he wasn't there, and then finally we found him in a gun shop. He was
In a gun shop, yeah.
so, and he was sitting next to this man with so much charisma and his so much bright eyes. I was in shock, and then my confusion was totally complete about this guru sitting in this gun shop. I think
was behind the take.
it took me many years to work this out, and so I'm very, very happy with it really clarifies a lot everything you share. And also I like to thank you, Kharku, for what you shared about Muniraji, how he used the patukas. You shared that in Riveraat a couple of years ago at Guru Purnima, and that really hit me so hard. It really touched me. So now I have my own. And that was really a very, very moving story. So you told it again, and yeah, thank you so much. There's only one question I like to know, because of this discipline about Muniraji. You mentioned that before, and the importance of it, but for me, there was only Babaji there where Muniraji was. So I was just wondering if this discipline was really necessary also to have Babaji there. Maybe it's a silly question, I don't know.
You don't need discipline to have Babaji. You have
Okay.
Babaji. We all have Babaji.
Okay.
Anytime we're not aware that we have Babaji, or however we experience the divine, whatever personality we add to the divine, we often add Babaji. Some people see the Divine Mother, or some people see Jesus. It doesn't matter. It's the divine. When we don't have the divine with us, we have created a veil. In Sanskrit, we say we put a veil there so that, you know, we created our own obstacle, our own separation. God is always with us. The discipline is a little bit like creating habits. And when you create habits that are positive, you move your life in a more positive direction. So everybody doesn't need to. Many people are already in a positive direction. And your stories of Muniraji and that silence and that confusion, that is just truly amazing. That was our everyday experience with so many people. You know, Muniraji kept almost every gift he ever received. Sometimes he gave them away, but when we cleaned up his house later, he had tens of thousands of little gifts that people had given him, photographs, incense sticks. I mean, so many things, not the things that went straight to the puja, and he told me that he kept all those gifts because that allowed him, every time he saw, he would remember and reconnect with those people who gave it to him. So that was part of the way that he stayed connected with us. And my friend Ajit, one time the astrologer who saw Babaji sitting on Muniraji's shoulder, one time we were in Harakan for a fire ceremony for one of the big yagyas. And Ajit he was looking all over, and he's like, what's the matter? He said, Babaji's not on Muniraji's shoulder. I never saw that before. And then after a couple of minutes, he said, oh, there he is. He was sitting on the little wall next to the temples where every once in a while, a few people sit up high to look down at he said, oh, there he is. There he is. It was really confusing to see him here. So how lucky for you. Just God is mysterious. We can never understand.
Yeah.
We can never understand why you get the blessing to see Babaji when you see Muniraji. But
Mm.
Muniraji was so connected to Babaji that you felt Babaji through him, whether you saw him or not.
Thank you.
Yeah, how beautiful.
I can hear.
I
Oh,
hear
good,
somebody.
Motu.
Motu!
Hello.
I want. I show up as light child, so I guess you didn't know it was me.
Ah,
I want to go back to what Jamna was saying about when we found out that Babaji had left his body, and I had the same reaction she did. I couldn't stop crying. I felt I either had to feel nothing or I was crying, and it was really hard for me, and I wanted to die. I wanted to be with him. I thought that I needed to die to be with him. Had an emergency operation, and they couldn't operate for 4 days because my fever was so high. And on the night of the 4th day, Babaji came to me and he said, "What is this? What is this with you? You know, you want to die? Are you sure you want to die? You want to be with me in that way?" And he said, "I give you a choice. You can die now, or you can choose to live. But I highly recommend that you live." Which at the time was pretty interesting. And then later, a friend of mine told me that she got a call from me when I was in the recovery room, which there was no way I could have called her physically on a telephone. And the call said, "I chose to live because Babaji instructed me that it's the best way for me is to continue to live. And I have much more to do." And within 3 years, he came to me in a meditation, and that's when he sent me to Russia. Well, he sent me first to Romania to help children, because that was when the dictators of Romania were shot and killed, and they found out about all these children that were being warehoused. And he told me very clearly and showed me a picture of a blonde-haired baby with blue eyes. And he said, "You must go and do this. This is your sadhana." And so for 20 years, I helped children in 9 different former Soviet countries. And I had a double-edged sword about it, because it always kept me from going to the different places where there were events going on. And I felt like I was missing out. But I realized that Babaji was with me every step of the way, with every child, which turned out to be over 1,500 children, many of whom I'm still in touch with. And he came to me about in the 2000s. I saw Jamna and Kharku a couple of times in Los Angeles. And I saw Maria Elana when I was in Arizona. And we had wonderful talks and wonderful experiences, but only in the past couple of years since I've been coming to Mexico, did I realize that I wasn't disconnected from my Babaji family. By being connected to Babaji, I was connected to all of us, and that we all are one, and we don't have to speak to each other or do things together to be together, that we are together in his love, in his family. I mean, it still makes me cry because I miss you all so much. And I've managed to see some of you over the years, and some of you I haven't. Nagin is coming today with her husband to Mexico to visit me.
Aww.
I'm so excited because she's moved now back to the States from New Zealand. And so I just wanted to thank you for Jamna for expressing the same thing that I felt, and how you and I were so connected when we were in India. I mean, Babaji didn't ever really tell me, but I know that I was your mother in another lifetime, because it was that kind of connection. And I felt, because when I met her. And I've been, luckily enough, I've been able to stay in touch with Ramloti quite a lot over the years. And we were, Babaji said that she had been my husband in a former lifetime, which we laughed a lot about. But I'm so grateful for these satsangs on Saturdays, because it's an opportunity for us all to join together. And I've found that since I've been watching these, something has come back to me that I had and then I felt I lost, which is, I don't do the mantra does me. I find myself, just the mantra is within me and coming out of me without me having to sit down and think, okay, now I have to do japa. It's become such a part of me that the mantra does me, and the Om Namah Shivaya, and also the mantra that Babaji gave me when he and Shastriji initiated me. So I want to thank Ramloti. I know I thanked you before when I talked, but it's really such a great gift for us all to be coming closer, to be able to understand our oneness with each other. So
Thank you, Motu.
thank you.
And that's a,
Lovely to hear you, Mo.
Thank you, Motu.
Oh,
Thank you.
is it
it's,
possible?
I just want to say one thing. It's a good segue while everybody's here to next week. And so listen up carefully, because we won't have it on Saturday, because the Huracan Conclave will be there for their Guru Purnima gathering, and I will post that link as many places I can. But we'll have it on Sunday at 10 o'clock, so a week from tomorrow. And it will be our special Guru Purnima gathering, and inviting everyone to share their guru story about Babaji when they felt it in their heart, whether they ever met Baba in their physical or however. So that should be a beautiful one. Hopefully we'll even get to see you that time, Motu. And maybe Nagan will be there too, who knows. So,
Yeah, maybe my video isn't working so well on my Mac. So
understand. Geeta, did you want to share something?
Yeah,
Or who wanted to share?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Geeta.
Giridhar.
He's with, sorry.
Oh,
I just want to thank you so much. It was really a miracle that Monica was sharing the link to get again in touch with all these wonderful words you shared. And for myself, it was really to bring back a lot when I was in Huracan and in Giulianola. It reminds me again what a wonderful and blessed time I had also together with Muniraji. A lot of just remembered a lot of things what had happened, and I want to say thank you so much for these moments that you shared all this.
Thank you, Ramloti.
Thank you.
Please be with us next week, Geeta, and share more of your story, okay?
Yes.
Thank you, because it's really
can
important.
I say something?
Yes. Who is this? Okay, that's.
Giridhar.
I got you.
Giridhar.
Yes.
I'm the husband of Anita.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I just told her today, I'm not such a good talker, but I just told her today that I feel myself very sad because I was more thinking about Babaji than I was thinking about her. And then she said, no, that's very good, very good. She was very pleased. But something else, she told. Muniraj was behind the
Counter.
and his friend was sitting before. And we came in, and then he saw me, and he looked very sure, his head down, and till I said to him, "Oh, Muniraji, no problem. I like guns too." And then he got a smile, and he was happy. And since that time, we got a real nice friendship. And he took me a lot of times in his car with him to Haldwani, to the shop, and we drink tea and things. But also, he called me the Flying Dutchman because I like to see him so much, and so I was so happy. But I had a business in Holland, and I hadn't time to go there. So I went there many times, a few times with Mata Baba from the ashram. And then we stayed there 5 days, and then we had to go back because I had to work. But later on, I went on my own, and I went there Friday afternoon. I took the plane in the evening, and I had to be back Monday morning in Amsterdam again. So that's why he called me the Flying Dutchman, because I only came there for 1-2 days, and then I was away. The last time I went there, and then I came home after 2 days, and I said to my wife, "Oh shit, I forgot to ask Muniraji something." Then she said, "Yeah, then you had to go back." Yeah, I think I had to go back. So next morning I was in the plane again and went back to Muniraji, and he was in Chirianola, and he invited me there, and he said, "Surprise, you're back again, surprise." And then we had a nice dinner, and I talked to him. And next morning I went back to Amsterdam because I had to do my business. And so I did this a couple of times, so quick visitings. And I liked him very much. Always when I came, he invited me in the evening, and we watched TV, and we had a nice dinner, and a little talk, because he was not a talker. But we talk about business, more about business than we talk about Babaji or things. It was really nice, and I miss him every day. And I was in America with the Native Americans. I follow also a group of Native Americans, and I did the ceremonies there and the Sundance. And then I got in the middle of the dance, someone told me Muniraji was died. And yeah, it was one of the best dances I had that time, because Muniraji was so close with me, and in that moment. And yeah, that's what I like to share now. And next time I tell you other stories, because it was a really nice time with him. So nice, so nice. Really, really. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for listening. And okay.
May I just quickly share with you that Muniraji told me that he never ever spoke spiritual things with Babaji, ever.
Yeah.
Only practical things.
Yeah.
All the teachings inside.
Yeah.
But
It's
Babaji,
also, we are all Babaji.
Yeah. It was how many sacks of rice to send, how many how many bottles of ghee, and that all those years he was the closest person ever to Babaji, and they never ever spoke spiritual things.
Yeah.
I like I like to take what Loknath once said according to Bo, that I would like to see myself how Babaji sees me. I like that quote so much. Maybe Lok, beautiful ending of Satsang, how did Babaji, how did you question Babaji? I would like to see myself how Babaji sees me. That's an ultimate question. We're all Babajis, but what would
Yeah.
Babaji see if he looks at us?
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
that's
that's a
true.
wonderful that's a wonderful thing, isn't it? That inquiry, and I think the question is one that is helpful for us all to carry into our daily lives. I love the sense that as we grow into a conversation with the deep self within us, with our souls, where Babaji sits. I love how he insinuates himself into everything. I went down to see Sai Baba. And I turned down to see him, and who was walking up toward me? It was Babaji. So this big consciousness, I think resides both in our question, in the silence, and in this inspiration that comes to us. So how can I see myself as Babaji sees me? That's that can be quite a very revealing thing. It brings up a lot of shit in us, and we get to deal with that, and we get to see beyond it. So yeah, I don't know. Babaji, wonderful to see everybody. Wonderful inspirations.
That's true.
Great to see you.
Bode architect.
Yeah,
Do a call.
yeah, we do this. Maria Elana, you don't remember me, but I remember the watermelon juice in your house.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, back there, and so yeah, many prayers as you let go of your life in Phoenix and move to Kamalaya.
It's
A very loving couple you have to take care of you.
indeed, I'm very fortunate.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
Baba's blessing to me.
Yeah, many blessings from all of us.
Thank you.
Everybody, Loknath married Jamuna and I.
Yes, yes.
We highly
I-
recommend him. We're still together.
He just stuck us together.
Super glue.
Oh, I do remember from the wedding.
Yeah, you do. You do.
Yeah.
Loknath was married. Yeah.
Yes, 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 yes. We have changed a little bit.
No.
No, it's beautiful to see each of you.
Mhm.
Each of you.
You see Gayatri there?
And God, no,
You can see you.
Yeah.
If you speak up, your camera will come forward.
Let us see you for 1 minute, Gayatri.
There she
Yay.
I'm on camera, you guys. I'm on camera.
Yeah, but now you're
I
on
don't know
screen.
if do I come because I've been looking in the gallery. I was going to share with you all in closing a poem I wrote this morning because of all the struggles that I'm facing. I wrote something that I thought might help because sometimes we forget. So it's called Mercy on the Creature. Mercy on the creature mercy on the creature that goes fishing for love. Mercy on the creature that indulges in overwhelming sadness and grief. Mercy on the creature that tells people her troubles and wants attention. Mercy on the creature that can't give over this load and instead holds it like a cherished blanket. Mercy on the creature that goes up and down with the tides. Mercy on the creature that feels like a victim of circumstance. Mercy on the creature that wants what it cannot have. Mercy on the creature that will not surrender to the moment. Mercy on the creature that rages at life and death and forgets how blessed it is. Mercy on the creature that wants to give up when there is so much beauty staring her in the face. Mercy on the creature that feels poor me. Mercy on the creature that tries to contrive. Mercy on the creature turns over and over to the pain of separation, knowing it's a gross misunderstanding. Mercy on the creature that can't get out of her head. Mercy on the creature that ignores what's right in front of her. Mercy on the creature that thinks it is a creature at all, and thus lives in an unending cocoon of joy and sorrow. Mercy on the creature for all its silly modes of turning away from the very thing that could set it free. Mercy on the creature for being so blind to the grace of each breath. Mercy for all creatures lost in the illusion of duality. Mercy on the creature that is writing this. Mercy, mercy, mercy. Yeah, I think we have to have mercy on ourselves, you know. Anyway,
Yeah.
I love you all.
Forgiveness begins with us.
Beautiful.
I love you, Gayatri. That's so beautiful. Thank you.
Could you share that with us directly, sweetheart? That.
Yeah.
I want- Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya. Mercy on all of us.
Yeah.
Amen.
Babaji is mercy. Mother is mercy.
I think that's how
Well, it
Baba.
reminded me when he said, I want to see myself as he sees me. I mean, he had so much mercy and love.
Thank you, Gayatri, for sharing that. I think with that, we'll say thank you to Maria Elana and Kharku and Jamuna and everybody else that shared today. And I do love that vision, and that I think the truth that Baba sees us as his divine children who he loves, always with his arms around us, no matter what we're up, where we're at in our journey. So thank you all. And we'll see you a week from tomorrow.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Baba.
Holy.
Jai.
Jai.
Love you all very much.
Thank you.